federal judge just ruled that your gun safe might make you a felon. Yeah, you heard that right. And 3 other January court decisions could turn your everyday carry routine into a criminal offense before Valentine's Day. If you don't know these 10 changes right now, you could be breaking laws that didn't even exist last month. Quick question before we continue. Are you subscribed yet? Because what I'm about to reveal isn't just important, it's urgent. These rulings are already in effect, and law enforcement is getting briefed on them as we speak. Hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss updates like this. Seriously, 90% of gun owners find out about these changes after it's too late. Don't be one of them. All right, let's jump into this because January 2025 was absolutely wild for gun law. Courts across the country made decisions that completely rewrote the rules. And I'm not talking about small tweaks. I'm talking about major changes that affect how you store your guns, where you can carry them, and even what accessories you can legally own. Let's start with the biggest bombshell. Change number 1. The Ninth Circuit Court just upheld a law requiring specific types of gun storage in homes where minors are present. Now here's what this actually means for you. If you live in a state covered by the Ninth Circuit, which includes California, Oregon, Washington, Arizona, Nevada, and a few others, you could be required to store your firearms in a particular way. We're talking about locked containers, trigger locks, or gun safes that meet certain standards. Here's the kicker. If a minor gains access to your firearm because you didn't follow these storage rules, you could face criminal charges even if nothing bad happens, even if the kid just picks it up and puts it back down. The court said this doesn't violate the Second Amendment because it's a reasonable safety regulation. But here's what most people are missing about this ruling. The definition of what counts as proper storage is super specific. Your basic gun lock might not be enough anymore. Some jurisdictions are now requiring biometric safes, or safes, that meet California DOJ standards. And if you're thinking, well, I don't live in those states, so I'm good, hold on. This ruling sets a precedent that other circuit courts are already looking at. We could see similar laws pop up in other states within the next 6 months. Change number 2, and this one's sneaky. A district court in Texas ruled on what counts as a sensitive place and where guns can be banned. You probably know that schools and courthouses are off limits. But this ruling just expanded that definition in a way that's going to surprise you. The court said that any private property owner can declare their property a sensitive place, and you have to comply. Sounds simple, right? But here's where it gets tricky. This includes parking lots. Let me give you a real-world example. Let's say you're carrying concealed, totally legal, and you pull into a shopping mall parking lot. If that mall has posted signs declaring the property a gun-free zone, you could be trespassing the moment you cross into that parking lot, even if you never leave your car. Before this ruling, many gun owners thought parking lots were safe zones because they're kind of public. Not anymore. This decision says property owners have broad authority to restrict firearms anywhere on their property. And if you ignore those posted signs, you're not just being asked to leave. You could be charged with criminal trespass. That's a misdemeanor in most places, but it goes on your record and can affect your ability to own guns in the future. Change number 3 is about ghost guns, but not in the way you're thinking. A January ruling clarified what counts as manufacturing a firearm. If you buy an 80% lower receiver and finish it yourself at home, that's been legal for years. But this new decision says that if you do this with the intent to sell or transfer the gun later, even to a family member, you need a federal firearms license. Here's what that means in plain English. Building a gun for yourself is still okay. But if you build one and then 6 months later decide to sell it or give it to your buddy, the court can argue you manufactured it with intent to distribute, and that's a federal felony. The big change here is the word intent. Prosecutors don't have to prove you planned to sell it when you built it. They just have to show that you transferred it within a reasonable time after building it. And guess what? The ruling doesn't define what a reasonable time is. Some prosecutors are arguing anything less than a year counts as intent to distribute. This is a massive gray area, and it's going to catch a lot of home builders off guard. Now, quick legal note, this is educational information, not legal advice. Every situation is different, and laws vary by state. Always consult a qualified attorney for your specific circumstances. I can't give you legal advice through a YouTube video, but I can help you understand what's happening so you can ask your lawyer the right questions. If you're finding this helpful, imagine what you'll learn in my next video where I break down the exact words to say when a cop asks if you're carrying. I'm talking about the specific phrases that protect your rights without escalating the situation. Subscribe so you don't miss it, because that video could literally save you from jail time. Change number 4 deals with concealed carry permits and reciprocity. A court just ruled that states don't have to honor out-of-state carry permits if those permits were issued under less restrictive standards. Here's why this matters. Let's say you have a concealed carry permit from Florida, which is pretty easy to get. You drive to a state that normally recognizes Florida permits. But if that state decides Florida's standards are too loose, they can stop honoring those permits. And here's the crazy part. This can happen without warning. One day your permit is good, the next day it's not. The ruling says states have the authority to evaluate whether other states' permitting processes meet their safety standards. If they decide the answer is no, reciprocity goes out the window. So what do? Before you travel with your gun, you need to check not just if your permit is recognized, but if there have been any recent policy changes. We're talking about checking within a week of your trip, not just assuming the old reciprocity maps are still accurate. Change number 5 affects gun shows and private sales. A January decision expanded the definition of who needs to conduct background checks. The court said that if you sell guns with regularity, you're engaging in the business of dealing firearms, even if it's not your main source of income. Here's a hypothetical example to explain this. You inherit a gun collection from your grandfather. It's got 20 firearms in it. Over the next year, you sell 10 of them through private sales and at gun shows. According to this ruling, you could be considered a dealer because you sold multiple guns over a period of time with a pattern of regularity. And if you're a dealer, you need an FFL license or you're breaking federal law. The key word here is regularity. The court didn't give us a magic number, but they did say that selling just 2 or 3 guns in a short period could count if you're doing it as a business activity. How do they decide if it's a business? They look at things like whether you're trying to make a profit, whether you're advertising the sales, and whether you're buying guns specifically to resell them. This is going to make a lot of private sellers really nervous. Change number 6 is about bump stocks, and yes, they're back in the news. A circuit court upheld a state-level ban on bump stocks even after the Supreme Court struck down the federal ban. Here's what you need to know. The Supreme Court said the ATF overstepped by classifying bump stocks as machine guns. But that was about the federal rule. States can still ban them under their own laws. This January ruling confirmed that. So even though the federal ban is gone, if your state has its own bump stock ban, it still applies. And here's what's wild. Some states are now expanding their bans to include other rate-of-fire increasing devices like binary triggers and forced reset triggers. If you own any of these devices, you need to check your state law right now. Not next week, not next month. Right now. Because possession of a banned device is usually a felony and ignorance of the law is not a defense. Here's a crazy stat. Only 8% of gun owners check for legal updates more than once a year. That means 92% of you are at risk of breaking a new law without even knowing it exists. Don't be in that 92%. Hit that subscribe button now and turn on notifications so you get these updates the moment they drop. This stuff changes fast, and you need to stay ahead of it. Change number 7 deals with red flag laws and due process. A court just ruled that red flag orders can be issued without the gun owner being present at the initial hearing. This is controversial, but here's what the ruling actually says. In an emergency situation, a judge can issue a temporary order to seize your firearms based on someone else's testimony, and you don't get to defend yourself until later. The court said this doesn't violate due process because you get a full hearing within 14 days. But here's the problem. In those 14 days, your guns are already gone. And if you don't show up to that second hearing, or if you can't afford a lawyer, the temporary order can become permanent. The ruling emphasized that there has to be clear evidence of immediate danger. But clear evidence is a subjective standard. Different judges interpret it differently, and once your guns are seized, getting them back can be a nightmare, even if you win your case. Change number 8 affects ammunition purchases. A January decision upheld background check requirements for ammo sales in certain states. If you live in California or a few other states considering similar laws, you now need to pass a background check every time you buy ammunition. And I'm not talking about just going to a gun store. This includes online purchases. If you order ammo online and have it shipped to your state, the seller has to verify that you pass a background check before shipping. Some sellers are just refusing to ship to these states because the compliance is too complicated. So your options for buying ammo are shrinking. And here's the part nobody's talking about. These background checks cost money. Sometimes it's $1, sometimes it's $5, sometimes more. If you're buying ammo regularly, these fees add up fast. And if you fail the background check, you're out the fee and you don't get your ammo. Why might you fail? Could be a clerical error, could be a delayed status in the system, could be a lot of things. And clearing it up takes time. Change number 9 is about open carry in vehicles. A court ruled that having a gun visible in your car does not count as open carry if the gun is not on your person. This sounds like good news, but it's actually creating confusion. Here's why. Some states allow open carry but not concealed carry without a permit. If your gun is sitting on your passenger seat in plain view, is that open carry or is that something else? This ruling says it's not open carry because the gun is not physically on you. But that doesn't mean it's automatically legal. Some states have laws about transporting firearms that require them to be in a case or in the trunk. So just because it's not open carry doesn't mean you're in the clear. You have to check your state's transportation laws separately. This ruling is causing a lot of confusion because people think it gives them more freedom than it actually does. Change number 10, and this is the one that's going to affect the most people. A court ruled that firearms training requirements for carry permits can include live fire exercises, even if those exercises are expensive or hard to access. Several states have tried to make carry permits harder to get by requiring extensive training. Gun rights groups argued this was an unconstitutional barrier. But this January ruling said, nope, states can require training as long as it's reasonable. And the court defined reasonable pretty loosely. They said that requiring 8 hours of training, including live fire qualification, is not an undue burden, even if it costs $200 or more. Here's why this matters. If you live in a state that's considering permit changes, expect training requirements to get more strict, not less. And if you're thinking about getting a carry permit, do it now before the requirements get harder. Because this ruling just gave states the green light to make training more expensive and more time-consuming. You know what's worse than not knowing about a law change? Finding out about it from a police officer while you're being arrested. Subscribe right now so you're always ahead of the curve. Turn on that notification bell too, because these updates are time-sensitive. You need to know this stuff the day it happens, not weeks later. So let's wrap this up. January 2025 brought 10 major changes that every gun owner needs to understand. Storage requirements are getting stricter. Sensitive places are expanding. Ghost gun rules are tightening. Reciprocity is getting shakier. Private sale definitions are broadening. Bump stock bans are sticking at the state level. Red flag laws are moving faster. Ammo purchases are getting harder. Open carry in vehicles is being redefined. And training requirements are going up. These aren't small tweaks. These are fundamental changes to how gun laws work. And here's the most important thing. These rulings are already in effect. You don't get a grace period. You don't get a warning. The law changed, and you're expected to follow it immediately. Here's what you need to do right now. First, check if your state is affected by any of these rulings. Second, review your storage setup, your carry habits, and your buying practices. Third, if you have any questions about how these changes apply to you, talk to a lawyer who specializes in gun law in your state. And fourth, stay informed. Laws are changing faster than ever, and you can't afford to fall behind. This information could literally save you from felony charges. Subscribe now because my next video breaks down the 5 most common mistakes gun owners make that lead to arrests and how to avoid every single one of them. Don't miss it. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like button if this video helped you, and drop a comment letting me know which of these 10 changes surprised you the most. I read every comment, and your feedback helps me make better content for you. Stay safe, stay legal, and I'll see you in the next video.